Hello everyone, Mike Lowe here at SimSportsGaming.com, bringing you SSG Pro Football Digest, which is going to be a stream just discussing all things happening in our Front Office Football League, which is the tech simulator game. So separate from our Madden League, separate from even our college football simulator leagues. Again, this is the league just dealing with the Front Office Football software. So this is a league that's been around since 2015. And yeah, it's been just a ton of fun here. We just finished up our 2020 amateur draft, which is really what this stream is going to focus on mostly. But first, I wanted to tell you just a few things about what's going on with the league. And first off, we have a number of teams that are open, and I wanted to just kind of talk to you about those teams. We have a lot of teams that are kind of hovering around 500 that are open. Arizona, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Washington are all teams that were like 8-8 or 7-9 last year. Three of which, all in the AFC North, were actually 7-9. So if you have you and maybe a couple friends looking to jump into a league, that would be a really cool situation where you could all join the same division, start with the previous year's same record, and things like that. So Houston is kind of the outlier, I guess, with that. They finished 2-14 last year. Had a top pick in the draft, if not the top pick. I think they're actually the 49ers. There was a trade or something, but Houston they were 2-14, so by far struggled the most last year. If you're looking for kind of that true rebuild challenge. So again, if you're interested, really the best way that you can take a look and see or kind of jump in and join the league is you can go to our website simsportsgaming.com. You can click underneath the applications tab, go to PC leagues, and then front office football, pro football. So again, there are about 6 openings at this point as we transition between the 2019 and 2020 seasons. We just finished just the bulk of the off season really at this point. You can also just join our Discord if you want to by clicking here and connect. You can reach out to either me or even better Kevin Oakes, who is our general or who is the commissioner for our front office football league, and his handle is Born to Run. So again, you can look up either of us and we'll get you connected there. So if you're interested, just let us know. But again, 6 teams open. You can check out the website. There's tons of other stuff going on in SSG, but we're going to be keeping this stream specifically tied to our front office football league. But I wanted to start just by showing you the open teams so that as we go through, look at some of the rookies and whatnot, you can get a good idea of maybe some of those open teams. If you see a player that interests you or a situation or scenario that interests you, that could be a cool thing for you. So our first topic we just talked about, obviously, just kind of jumping onto the website and so on and doing that sort of thing. But so again, this is really hard to read, as you can see. So what I'm actually going to be doing on the screen, the stream quite a bit, is kind of just expanding out the visual as much as I can. This is full screen. Unfortunately, this game, just the resolution is kind of tough on this game. So I apologize that some of these windows are hard to read, and I can't even like resize these windows as far as I know. But anyway, we can still take a look at a number of different things going on. And again, really the topic I want to jump into next is just the draft review itself. And what we can look at are the game report cards for teams. What's something called the green page, which is like the top young players in the league that are either rookies or second-year quarterbacks. And there's a few other things that we'll just kind of look at, sort of just unscripted, and we'll just kind of go through and maybe look at the top picks, things like that. So let's go back to our full screen, and we are going to pull up the draft review. So this tab here, again, I know it's hard to read, but this is basically giving each of the teams a letter grade for their draft. At the bottom, it's Solismic, who's the company who makes this game. So the Solismic draft review grades each team for its performance during the amateur draft. Teams are graded based on how the draft improved each roster for the future. So again, it's going to take into account value, obviously the talent of the players, but also things like the number of players. And I think that's why you're probably seeing my team at the top, Detroit. I do think we had a nice draft, but an A+, I was very surprised we're the only team with an A+. And I think some of that's just because we traded back and ended up with 9 picks in this draft, and we used all 9. So just an accumulation of talent. Again, the players all came back pretty strong with Detroit, so I'm pretty happy about that. The only other team to at least get in the A range was the Miami Dolphins with an A-. We have about 6 or 8 teams or so in the B+ range, and those are the next teams you see there: Carolina, New Orleans, Seattle, Arizona, who's an AI team, as we mentioned, Philadelphia, Oakland, Kansas City, New England, and Cleveland were all in that B plus range. And we get a kind of a huge range of B to B minus teams, and then teams kind of towards the bottom. And again, it could be because they had lack of picks. It could be because maybe they got an extra first round last year or something like that. But nonetheless, Green Bay at a C plus, the Jets at a C plus, and the Steelers at C plus. Cincinnati, who's an AI team, at C. Another AI team in Washington at C, and then Baltimore, another AI team, having the worst grade at C minus. So again, if you're looking maybe for a kind of a rebuilding challenge, and maybe Baltimore is that team you want to take there. A very, very different Baltimore team in this league than what you're seeing in real life. So again, it could be a really, really cool challenge to see if you can kind of get that team built up and maybe get into a Super before the real life Baltimore Ravens. So again, this is a league that started in 2015, so a lot of the players that are kind of emerging into top young players in this league are fictional, which is really cool because we still have a sprinkling, of course, of the original players and things like that. So at this point, it just becomes a really, really fun thing to take a look at. So we can start by really getting a good idea of the new talent in the league by looking at this screen called the green page. And as I mentioned, this is all rookies, but it's also second-year quarterbacks. So, and speaking of second-year quarterbacks, the top player in the, and this is on my wrong screen here, one second, the top young player in the league is actually last year's number 1 pick. And this was to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a quarterback named Peter Garner out of Kansas State. So he went number 1 overall. And we can click back and we can actually look and see what he did last year. Right? He started in 8 games. He completed 64.7% of his passes, 1,876 yards. And again, I know these are hard to read, so I'm reading them to you. 12 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He had a QB rating of 89.6. So, I mean, that's pretty solid for a rookie. He started half the year. He's 25 now. So, again, he was a bit of an older rookie at 24. But you can see his rating bars, he still has untapped potential. The green area are the kind of the untapped potentials. And, again, this is according to my scout, which I don't mind sharing because there's so much variety in this game. There's tons of X factor things happening in this game that no one scout is truly accurate. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously looks like a really good player. And this game, again, just does some really cool things like chemistry, right? So it says there's a strong conflict with the wide receiver, Robert Woods. So that's going to be a big decision because obviously this guy's owed a lot of money. And if he's unhappy with his receiver, and I know these are hard to read, but he's got bonuses of just about $6 million all 3 of these years. So that's a huge thing there. He's making cap costs of about $7 million going into this season. So a little bit of drama going on there with Jacksonville. Jacksonville made the playoffs, though, with this guy last year, if I recall. So he's no slouch for sure. And it's really, probably see a pretty big jump from Peter Garner, I think, in year 2. The rest of these guys are all rookies, right? So these are all players that were just taken. And the second best player is with our Kansas City Bees team. So again, Kansas City had kind of an identity change here, but Kansas City ended up picking, you can't see him here, there he is, Gregory McCurley. So he was out of Louisiana Lafayette, ULL, and he went number 4 overall in this year's draft. You can see his bars. These blue bars are the rookie bars. So again, they're very unpredictable at times, I guess. We don't quite know what we're getting, and that's obviously very realistic, unlike Madden, where as soon as you draft a player, you know his overall and stuff like that. So there's some mystery here, but I mean, my goodness, if his blue bars are anywhere near that, this guy looks completely dominant. Just 22 years old, really, really nice player, and Kansas City moved up, actually, I believe with me. Yeah, it's just Kansas City made a trade with Detroit, and this is who they traded up to get here, and it was a really smart move by them. For my Lions, again, we just didn't really have a player. We definitely had a player we liked who we ended up getting, luckily, but I didn't feel I needed to pick him at number 4. So it's a really nice trade for both teams. It worked out, but I really like who Kansas City picked there, number 4 overall. The third highest rated player on the green page, again, is actually the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and it's a guy named Lincoln Bosadir. And so Bosadir has he's 6'5", 330-pound defensive tackle. This is a monster of a guy. He's out of Georgia. Again, picked 10th overall. He's going to clog the run. He's got really, really outstanding pass rush technique. Smart player who's just incredibly strong and can play just about every single down. He's also a great special teams player. So again, just a really, really well-rounded player. I mean, the only negative you could even say, because he's not a guy who's ever going to really drop into coverage, pass rush strength, he's maybe not as strong as you'd like to see, even though he's a punishing hitter. That strength, maybe his strength isn't quite correlating with his size, but he's an ideal fit as a nose tackle. And again, this is an AI team, right? So this is what you'd be looking at here with the Cincinnati Bengals if you were to grab them. They have a very, very nice player that went 10th overall, but is considered the third best young player in the league. The Colts have a player who is considered the fourth best young player here, and he actually went 21st overall in the first round. He's a defensive end out of Michigan State, 24 years old, 6'2", 276. So pretty stocky guy for a defensive end, and it shows in his run defense there, which is projecting to be really strong. He's projecting himself to be a 4-3 defensive end, and so again, a solid pick, especially when you consider he went 21st overall to the Colts there. So really nice pick there. If I had to slide this over, we can probably split screen these a little bit. The next pick is a right tackle who the Buccaneers picked, named Giovanni Schwartz, and he went 7th overall. He was just 20 at the start of the draft. He just turned 21 here, so a very young player. He's a player actually you can see the Lions did scout, because I like this guy too. I knew he wouldn't fall to where we were picking at 14, and I didn't really want to maybe pick him at number 4, but I definitely like Giovanni Schwartz. And you can see that my scout also really liked him too. So this is what seems to be a really nice pick from Tampa Bay, who again went 7th overall here out of Iowa State. The next one up is actually who my Lions picked. So we traded down from the 4th overall pick to pick 13, and we ended up picking Brad Hutchins, who is a cornerback out of Tennessee. I believe the last time the Lions picked a cornerback in the first round out of Tennessee, it was Terry Fair, who had a pretty decent career, but we obviously have much higher expectations for Brad Hutchins here. We scouted him. He came back scouted. I believe it was very underrated is what our scout told us. So combining that with these high bars that we see for Hutchins, super excited about this pick. I mean, truthfully, turned out probably a little bit better than even I was expecting. So he's got a potential somewhere in like the mid 75 potential or so, which in this game is pretty darn high. He's 24, so again, he's not the youngest player, but again, I mean, we'll definitely get our use out of this guy, it looks like here. So very happy with that pick. Caleb Sawyer is the next guy on the list, and he went to the Washington Redskins, which is another AI team. So out of Kentucky, he went 19th overall. He's a left guard and probably looks at the best interior offensive lineman who was in this year's draft. And he played, again, out of Kentucky, is a guy who can come in and run block and pass block for Washington. And not that you necessarily build teams around interior linemen, but this is a small piece here for sure that can make a big impact on a team. So again, if you're looking to jump in and you really want to build out a run game, you have a piece in place here that you can absolutely establish a run game with here, and also protect your quarterback too. So I like this pick by the AI for Washington. Caleb Sawyer looks to be a really nice pick. Coming in at the 8th rated player is a running back, Calvin Burgess, who went number 8 overall to the Dallas Cowboys. So he's actually a Texas kid, hometown Plano, Texas, but he played his college ball at Rutgers. He's 24 years old, so again, already a little bit getting up there for a running back who, most running backs in the NFL don't see a second contract. This is why teams are starting to trend away from picking running backs so high, because it's rare when you come across a guy who might be like an Adrian Peterson or something like this, who are going to stick around in their like early 30s or mid 30s. But if you think you see a guy like Dallas did in real life, right? You can find maybe a guy like this in Calvin Burgess. So, and obviously for Dallas picking him 8th overall, they believe that they see a guy here who can be an every down back. He certainly has the endurance for it, which is one of the rating bars at the bottom there. Good breakaway speed, but also really exceptional power inside. Very elusive, speed to the outside. And this guy's got home run ability for sure. He looks to be an excellent playmaker with the ball in his hand. Also a pretty darn good receiver, although much better runner than a receiver, and he could even chip in a little bit in the return game too. So Calvin Burgess looks to be he's going to be certainly a player that I could see leading, say, offensive rookies in all-purpose yards. It would not surprise me one bit if Calvin Burgess leads the NFC rookies in that department. Coming in at number 9 was the first quarterback taken, and here is the second overall pick. And he's out of East Lansing, Michigan, but played his college ball also at Rutgers. So a couple of Rutgers players already on this list. And it's Craig Connell, who was, again, a quarterback taken by the AI-led Houston Texans. So this was the top quarterback picked. And looks to be a really strong fit here for the Texans, or for you who may be coming in looking to take this team as kind of a project of your own here in this league. So they are in need of a rebuild, and that's the direction that they went here with Craig Connell. There really isn't much weakness when we look at Craig Connell. You could say maybe he's just doesn't have as much touch on the short passes as he does some of these others, but overall he's got a really nice arm. He's a player who can absolutely throw downfield and remain accurate. He's a heady quarterback. He can sense the rush. He reads the defense. He can run the 2-minute offense. I mean, those three things right there can really separate a quarterback and make them into something special. So I think Craig Connell, I mean, he's going to, maybe have a rough going here in the beginning playing for a bad team. But this looks like definitely absolutely a pick that you could build your team around. So 10th best player here, Raymond Joyner, a left defensive tackle, another player that the Lions took a look at. You can see with those yellow bars. And so the Ravens, an AI-led team, picked him 11th overall out of Arizona State. He's 6'3", 308, and definitely more of like a 4-3 defensive tackle, but he's a 3-technique defensive tackle. So he can create some pass rush, no doubt. He can also play the run really well. And he's a smart player. His play diagnosis comes back very high and just does everything pretty well. Again, I mean, he's got really nice pass rush technique, and he's a smart player. And this is a player who's going to produce, though. He can clog up some holes in the run game, and he can certainly put pressure on the quarterback and the passing game of the Ravens' opponents. So yeah, another really nice pick here by Baltimore. And again, a piece that someone taking this team could certainly build around. So that's the top 10. Again, just kind of looking at the top 10 pieces there. You may be asking who went number 1 overall. Well, let's take a look and see. Let's see, draft review is that other screen. I think it's just draft. No, it's not draft order. I know there's like a draft history somewhere. You just got to bear with me while I find it. But let's see. I totally forget where that is. As you can see, this game doesn't have the greatest layout. It doesn't always make things very easy to see. Maybe we can see it here. Yeah, so draft pick status. So this is showing kind of the if there's any players who have not yet signed and things like this. But the first overall pick was actually to the 49ers, and they actually went with a tight end named Gerald McConnell. And his blue bars are through the roof, right? He's a tight end out of Texas A&M, 6'3", 246. I mean, really has the size to even be kind of like just an all-purpose back in a way. I mean, this guy can get creative, or I should say San Francisco could get creative in the way they get him the ball. He's out of St. Charles, Illinois, so northwest suburb of Chicago. I used to actually live really close to St. Charles, Illinois. But again, played his ball at Texas A&M, number 1 overall tight end. So I'm sure there were some boos in the crowd for the San Francisco 49ers picking a tight end number 1 overall. But if you're going to pick a tight end number 1 overall, what else are you looking for? Those bars. So again, if this guy comes back looking like this guy can absolutely dominate for the 49ers. And again, tight ends really, it's an underrated position. It's a position that doesn't always get as much glory, but if you have a really dominant one, look at some of the dominant teams in the NFL and what they've been able to do with a strong tight end. So I actually like the pick for the 49ers. There were a lot of talented players in this draft. And again, I mean, you could go through and look at all this as a member of the league here. But I mean, we have tons of talent going in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds, guys that we were just all kind of surprised to see. So again, I think that was a pretty cool experience was just going through that draft and seeing kind of the trends people were doing. Like, I know like my Lions, for instance, picked 2 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds, and I think even the 49ers picked 2 tight ends, if I recall. I'm going to check on that really quick here. Yeah, so in the second round, they also took a tight end. So they obviously have plans for their tight ends. But it was just neat to see. There was, again, a lot of talent coming off the board in this particular draft. So again, that was a quick review of the draft. There's so much more to look at, and I think on future episodes we'll maybe start featuring certain teams and maybe kind of the approach that they're going and hearing from some of those teams, which I think could be really, really cool. We did hear from one team in regards to their draft, and that was the Oakland Raiders. And this is the Raiders GM, Damon Masiosi, and he said Oakland is really happy with the initial ratings of their draft picks. Linebacker Nathan Borders looks worth trading up for with an 81 potential. Tackle Trey Whalen may be a steal in the fourth with a 61 potential. So while I let you look at that quote again, I'm going to actually pull up the Oakland Raiders here, and we'll take a look at a couple of those players. And again, this kind of just be a short team feature here since Damon sent us this information in here. So, okay, so let me go back to the full screen. So this is Nathan Borders, right? Oakland picked him at number 9 overall. Really, really nice player. This was a player, truthfully, the Lions were looking at too. We didn't scout him for a couple of reasons. Number one, I knew he wouldn't be available when I was picking at 13, and I'm surprised he fell to 9. And 2, I was concerned about his age. He was already 25 coming into this draft, and that was kind of the big turnoff for me. Not that I wouldn't want to pick a guy like this later, but as knowing that he would probably go in the top 10, I was a little bit worried about taking a 25-year-old. However, at linebacker, those guys can usually have a pretty lengthy career. If this is like a running back or something, I think that'd be a very, very different story. But he is out of Iowa State. Again, went 9 overall to the Raiders. 5'10", 229, so a little undersized, honestly. This guy could play safety really easily. But at the same time, he could be a pretty darn fast linebacker, so it seems. He ran a 4.68 40, so I'm surprised that it was that high, meaning he's not as fast as I guess I thought he would be. But it looks to be a very smart player. Solismic test, Solismic, however you say that, test came back as a high score. And he's an ideal front player for a 4-3 weak side linebacker, so that would be kind of his ideal fit, is playing on the outside. So really, I mean, since the Raiders took Aaron Curry a number of years ago, I mean, this is kind of one of their probably best linebackers that they've taken in a while. And I know you'd probably say, well, what about Khalil Mack or something? And he played a lot of down linemen too, right? So he's more of kind of like a hybrid, kind of a jack linebacker, kind of a defensive end guy who played on the line. I don't think Nathan Borders is going to do that at 5'10", 229. So again, kind of a much more stand-up linebacker. Again, a guy who could probably play safety if they wanted. I'm just curious to see what they do. But again, that 40-yard dash is a little concerning. But I would say it's only concerning if they're really trying to put him, say, in the defensive backfield, which I highly doubt they're doing. He played middle linebacker at Iowa State. Looks like he's going to play more on the outside in the NFL, but could certainly play inside as well. So Damon, with the Raiders, very, very happy with that pick. He also mentioned a lineman named Trey Whalen. And here's Trey Whalen. So he went actually in the 4th round. And 22-year-old, played college ball at Washington up in Seattle there. He's very underdeveloped at this point. He's only got about 7% of his talent or so developed. So this is definitely a project player. It's not probably a player you're going to see a whole lot of this year. If he does, he's probably going to struggle. But he was picked at the end of the 4th round, 28th pick in the 4th round for the Raiders. And again, really, really happy with that pick, as Damon said there in his quote. So again, just looks to be a good player, a lot of strength, 6'4", 302. He's got nice size for a guard. A tackle. But nice size for a guard too. He's a guy who could just definitely slide in and play really, really nice left guard, I would say, for sure. So I mentioned, just while we're here, and we haven't done like a team feature, I mentioned my Lions team, right? And just kind of showing, because we did have the highest draft, which I was pretty pumped about. So you can see here, Brad Hutchins is coming out as a 75 potential. We looked at him. This was our 2nd round pick. This is Butch Blakely. It was a guy I scouted because I didn't know if I really wanted Hutchins in the 1st round. I didn't know if he'd fall, but I knew I wanted to take a corner early. So I did scout some corners, and we were able to get one of the other guys I scouted as kind of a backup plan. But I liked him so much sitting in the 2nd round that I said, well, let's just go with him too. And so you can see Butch Blakely there. He's 2nd round pick out of Ole Miss. Last time the Lions picked a cornerback in the second round of Ole Miss, his name was Darius Slay III. So maybe there's a good omen there with that. Our third round pick, I really, really, really like. He's got a potential of 65. This is Bryce Schneider out of Virginia. So he was picked at the end of the second round. This is actually the pick I believe we got in the Calvin Johnson trade. We traded to Jacksonville for their playoff run. And so, because Calvin Johnson played in this league, he's still playing in this league. But this is a guy who just came back with just, he actually was kind of at his size, 5'10", 226 in the draft analyzer I was using. It even kind of said that he could play cornerback, which I was surprised by because, again, 4.66 speed. I'm not going to be playing him at corner, but certainly a really, really quick guy that we could throw in the middle. If we have some more openings on this team, we would probably end up putting this guy at weak side linebacker. So on this Lions team at this moment, we still have DeAndre Levy, but he's in his 12th year. DeAndre Levy is 33 years old right now. He's on the last year of his contract. So what'll probably happen to Schneider is he'll probably play on the inside, and then we'll see how that goes, or he can switch back to weak side linebacker after DeAndre Levy most likely is off the team there. So let's see a couple other highlights here. In the third round, so just a few picks later, we picked up Jonah Felix, and he is showing to have a potential of 65. So again, just a really nice player, even though wasn't necessarily looking for a one technique. He's just too good of a player to pass up. I love his punishing hitting, could create turnovers. He's just 20 years old, so already 22% developed for a 20-year-old. This is a guy we were really excited and kind of shocked that he fell to the third round. I'm sorry, the beginning of the third round, 4th overall in the third round. So Bubba Mobley is another guy that we took in the 4th round, and again, just complete talent. I don't need guards whatsoever, but I'll end up moving one of my guards to tackle, and Bubba Mobley might be starting as a 4th round pick for us. He's already 51% developed. I think he's going to probably show as a bit better as a right guard. He's a little undersized. He could even be moved to center. But again, a guy that we got in the 4th round just because he was just too talented to pass up. So we were pretty happy with that pick. A couple more here. We picked up a fullback, not a big news, but in the 5th round, just because he has a pretty good potential of 56. That was our 5th round pick early. And let's see, we picked up a tight end. Also, this is in the 5th, back-to-back pick. So it was a tight end and then the fullback here. Again, a bit of a project tight end, but we like him out of UTEP. And then I guess the last guy I'll show you is a running back we took in the 6th, who I actually like a lot. He's not much of a pass catcher at all, but this guy as a backup running back I think could be really, really a good player. Again, just 20 years old, but he's already 44% developed. Ran a 4.51 40, so he's not slow. And he's just for the 6th round. I mean, this is a guy out of Cal that we think can come in and start splitting carries really immediately. And start to push for that running back 2 spot. Our running back who actually the AI pick, because I stepped away from the Lions for about a half season or so when I missed the previous draft, but the AI did a nice job picking up a guy named Ross Hauser in the 2nd round out of Arizona. And he just 828 yards as a rookie, so but he's going to need some help. And so I think picking up Ross, I'm sorry, not Ross Hauser, but Deon Thigpen, I think was a smart move here by the Lions, and hopefully one that will give us a little depth at a position that typically you need a lot of depth at. So again, that was just a couple quick looks at a couple teams. We will continue to do that here and hopefully even get some other people involved in this stream. I think it'd be really, really cool to do that. And we saw some report cards, we saw the top pick, so on, but there's a lot to see. And if you do pick up a team in this league, you'll be able to go through and click all of this, and there's plenty of time to do so, because again, this is a real time sim league, which means we're not running week 1 until September. It's the end of May right now, so you have plenty of time. So again, I think this is just a perfect opportunity to jump in and get involved and grab a team here in a league that can be and by the way, I think it's gonna be a really good time to jump in the league, because if Out of the Park Developments, who's the team, the company that acquired this game, and there's rumors that the new game may be coming out for this fall. I don't know for sure. But you'd think they'd want to time it up with the start of the football season, and we know they're working on it. They've been diligently working on it, and getting a team now, because the league is going to absolutely fill when the new game comes out, and this is kind of the perfect opportunity to come in when you can pick the team that's the best fit for you. There's a couple other rookies we did not look at that I wanted to talk about. And to me, they're probably the two most explosive offensive rookies that we saw drafted. We talked a little bit about the tight end that 49ers took, but I don't think a tight end is going to probably have like an explosive rookie year, for instance. I think he'll probably end up being the best offensive player, maybe, but maybe not this year. So what I wanted to take a look at was something that's called the it's the league's fastest man screen. And so let's take a look at this, because this kind of shows you a little bit of athleticism, because there's a couple of rookies that actually appear on this page. By the way, Calvin Johnson, we talked about on the Jaguars, is listed as the fastest player in the league. And again, that was a trade we made last season, partway through the season around the trade deadline to help Jacksonville in their playoff run. So he's number one, but there were a couple of rookies in here, which was pretty cool to see. And I just had to remember, actually, I didn't even notice Brad Hutchins is on that list. So the Lions cornerback, who we've talked about a little bit here, is actually on that list. But there were a couple other players. Okay, so here's one of them. So Miami picked a receiver, Shannon Forte. This is a player the Lions were also looking at, because if he had fallen to the second round, which he almost did, he was picked kind of midway through the first, I think I would have snatched him up for sure. He scouted out to me as very underrated or underrated, one of the two. His bars came back really, really high. And I think this is an awesome pick by the Dolphins. I think it's one of the reasons why they probably had the second highest draft grade at A-. This is a receiver out of Utah, went 17th overall, 6 foot 197, so he's not going to like overwhelm you with his size, but he's 22 years old, and his bars are just through the roof in a lot of places. That big play receiving, when he drops, I mean, this guy's going to get downfield, make some big plays. That adjust to the ball, with big play receiving. I mean, this guy's going to catch long balls, it looks like. And so, getting downfield is something you'd like to see a little bit more of for a guy with that kind of big play receiving and adjusting. But if they can play this guy in the flanker spot where he's not going to be up at the line a lot, like I don't think I'd put him at a split end. But I think by having him in the flanker spot, he's going to be able to get off the line a lot better. I think this guy certainly could be in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mentioned earlier that I thought the one running back would probably get like all-purpose yards, Dallas's running back that they picked. But I could still see Shannon Forte winning Offensive Rookie of the Year potentially. There's definitely a few players who are in that running. So I really, really like that pick by the Dolphins. And there's another player on here. And if I did miss another rookie, I apologize. I tried to go through ahead of time and look for them. Like, I didn't even notice my guy was on there. But the Vikings picked a running back, number 5 overall. And I believe, isn't that where Adrian Peterson was picked too? That's kind of an interesting development. But this is again, looks to be another Adrian Peterson perhaps. 5'8", 215, so he's a little smaller, because Adrian Peterson's like 6 foot or 6'1", and like 225 or 230. But Evan Emerson, who's a running back out of Washington. So again, a couple Huskies here we've talked about today. His hometown is Honolulu, Hawaii. And he's already 59% developed. He went 5th overall, as I mentioned, and just bars through the roof. I mean, there's not a weakness in this guy's game whatsoever. So again, if we're looking at players, all-purpose yards for rookies, Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate, you'd be foolish to not have Evan Emerson on your list, because this guy looks great. He was, I think, if I recall, he was kind of, as far as like the generic grade of just like, don't worry about position, just overall talent in the draft. I think him and the tight end that the Niners picked were like 1 and 2. I mean, outside of like kickers and punters or something. But so these guys were really just two very, very explosive players. They're players that certainly the Lions thought about when we had our pick at 4 before we traded. But with Hauser already on the team, and we still have, believe it or not, we still have who's our tight ends? I'm totally drawing a blank on his name. The tight end from North Carolina. I have to look now because he's a bum in real life. Yeah, Eric Ebron. So we still have Eric Ebron, and so it was, for us, it was an easy pass on those players just because we didn't really have the spots. But if we go back into that list, again, Evan, and I don't think I had him up on the screen. I apologize if I didn't. But Evan Emerson just looks outstanding. So again, as I mentioned there, you can look at his bars and so on, and you can see he looks to be a very, very dominant player, a player that honestly my Lions are going to have to really worry about here for the next 7 to 8 years probably. So looks to be a really, really good player. So again, those are just some of the kind of the explosive players, I guess you could say. I think there's certainly defensive rookies that are going to have an impact, but for this episode, we just wanted to focus on just a few of the offensive rookies that I think are going to really have a pretty big impact for their teams in this season coming up here. So our last topic is we have some suspensions, which is interesting and actually kind of cool that the game kind of works things in like this. But ironically, and I guess in a bad irony for the Buffalo Bills, they were hit with 2 suspensions, and these are year-long suspensions. So first off, they are losing Marcel Darius, and let me put this up on the screen so you can see. But Marcel Darius, they are losing him for the season. He is really one of their defensive captains. He's a one-technique defensive tackle. I mean, he's a dominant player. You can tell by looking at his bars here. And it's unfortunate because really his age 30 season, this might be one of his last peak seasons that he has. He's owed a ton of money. And so, this is a huge hit for the Buffalo Bills. Not only are they losing Marcel Darius, though, they're actually losing one of their rookies. Their 3rd overall pick is a right tackle named Darren Benson. And their 3rd round pick. He was picked number 25 in the 3rd round out of USC. And so, it was just an unfortunate thing here that we had 2 players here that were both suspended. If I put them kind of side by side, I have a theory. These guys are both hometowns of Alabama, right? One guy is in Aliceville, Alabama. You can see there. Another one's in Birmingham. These are pretty close to one another. I think these guys, and there's no confirmation from the Bills or from the league, but I think these guys got into a little bit of trouble. And the league's been very hush-hush, but both of these guys have been suspended for the entire 2020 season. So perhaps we'll hear more about that. Perhaps we'll get a comment from the Bills for the next episode. But I think that's some interesting news that just came out today. So again, just kind of some breaking SSG pro football news there of what's going on with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, are they a team that maybe are they kind of losing control? Is it just a couple bad players a couple players making bad decisions, I should say. It's tough to say, but either way, it's going to be a very impactful situation for the Bills. So there's a lot going on in SSG Pro Football, as you can see. We have open teams. We have tons of rookies to look at. We have a lot of planning to do before the start of the 2020 season. Kevin has done an outstanding job as commissioner of this league pretty much since it started. And we're just lucky to have him. We're lucky to have everyone in the league here be so active. So again, if you're interested in a team, please apply. Join the website or just click on the website. You can fill out an application that will get sent to Kevin. And you can also jump into our Discord, introduce yourself. We'll get you pointed in the right direction. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, but either way, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I guess if you didn't like the episode, don't subscribe. You can just go somewhere else. But subscribe to our YouTube channel. That definitely helps us out. We have lots of other streaming content. It's not just me all the time as we're looking to expand the website and get more people involved and do things like this and write articles. And all of that stuff can happen on the Sim Sports Gaming website, on our YouTube channel, on our Twitter, and so on. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm excited to get more of these episodes going. And good luck the rest of the off season for those already in the Pro Football League. For the rest of you, we'll hear from you soon when you fill out an application, or we'll see you on the Discord. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.